Hello all, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I'm at Euston Station, the southern terminus of the West Coast Mainline and the future terminus of the HS2 network, to find out which of the West Coast Mainline operators, LNR or Avanti, is better. Inside Euston Station, besides the main departure board that we can see just above us, there is also a large range of restaurants and shops, such as Burger King and WH Smith. Our route today is between London Euston and Birmingham New Street via the West Coast Mainline. First of all, we will be travelling with the intercity operator Avanti West Coast on board one of their Class 390 Pendolino trains. Next up, we will be travelling on London Northwestern Railway and one of their fleet of Class 350 Desiro units, which they use on commuter services along the West Coast Mainline, including to Birmingham New Street. Now that we have the formalities out of the way, it's time for us to travel to Birmingham New Street on board Avanti West Coast's Class 390 Pendolino. Today we're travelling in first class. Built in two batches between 2001 and 2012, the Class 390 Pendolino forms the bulk of intercity services on the West Coast, serving destinations such as Glasgow and Birmingham. It's now time for us to board our service. One unique feature which I like about the Pendolinos is that the step board automatically draws down once you press the open door button and then closes upon departure. Let's get on. Starting our walkthrough from the first class section, we can see that it is in the 2+1 configuration, which is expected from a standard intercity train. Walking through, we are now at the accessible wheelchair area as well as the accessible toilet as required by PRM regulations. As we can see, it is nice and clean, and even includes a nice message on the mirror. However, this is to be expected from the first train of the day. The first class section on Avanti West Coast Pendolinos usually includes 2 or 3 carriages per train. However, this is now being outshopped in favour of more standard premium carriages, which we will see in a second, as at the time of recording there was only one in use. Walking through the third and final first-class carriage, we come across a standard toilet, which, despite being clean, again being the first service of the day, is relatively cramped in my opinion, but then again, that's the same with most standard toilets on trains. Coming onto this seemingly first-class area, we actually come across standard premium, with the main gimmick being it's a first-class carriage where you pay an additional supplement of £10, although you don't get the complimentary food and drink with it. This is a UK first though, as no other operator has yet to introduce it. Walking through standard premium, we now come across standard class, which, as the name suggests, is your bog standard off-the-shelf offering of a train seating. The seats are still in Virgin Trains colour scheme, as they are yet to be refurbished. The first set is due to be released sometime in 2022. Finally, we have the cafe bar, which is where you can buy a whole range of snacks and drinks on board your service. I would advise against this though, as it can be quite expensive. We now arrive at Coach A, a standard class seating area, and the end of our 11 carriage train. That's enough rambling from me now. Let's head to our seat and hit the Iron Road. This is Willesden TMD, where London Overground maintain their fleet of Class 378 and Class 710 units. We can also see some ex-East Midlands Railway power cars, which are now owned by Rail Adventure for use for rail freight operations in Europe. Now it's time for us to look at the features of the train. First of all, we have a coat hanger, which is useful for hanging jackets and bags. As can be seen, my bag now fits there perfectly, saving me having to put it under my seat. Next up, we have plug sockets. These plug sockets work for mobile phones and laptops, and are relatively useful for when charging your phone. Saying that though, they are only on tables in both first and standard class. As can be seen while struggling to charge my AirPods, they work perfectly fine. Next, we have a media port, which, given the train's age, I can imagine was used to play a selection of songs before the invention of portable devices. Certain tables in first and standard class have foldable tables, highlighting another area in which these trains are useful for people with reduced mobility. A window blind is also present on the Pendolino trains, which, if I'm going to be honest, I prefer. This is because it's much easier to use and operate as opposed to a curtain. Another perk of Avanti West Coast First Class is that you are offered complimentary food and drink with your ticket. This being delivered rather swiftly and with a smile from Avanti staff, so that's good to know. Not to mention that with the utensils, they are actually made out of wood rather than conventional plastic, as used by most operators. This, on top of the electric service provided by Avanti's Pendolinos, shows how sustainable travelling with them really is. Passing Watford Junction, we are now out of the Greater London area and now into Hertfordshire. Soon we will arrive in Buckinghamshire, where we arrive at our first stop, Milton Keynes Central. Tilt technology is what the Pendolinos use to achieve 125 miles an hour, which is what we're experiencing on this part of the West Coast Main Line. We are now arriving into Milton Keynes Central, the first of 3 stops on this journey. Milton Keynes is the largest settlement in Buckinghamshire, and Milton Keynes Central is a large interchange for London Northwestern Railway and Avanti West Coast services, as well as with southern services along the West London line. The road cutaway can be seen to the right, where the Northampton Loop line separates from the main West Coast Main Line, calling at intermediary stations such as Northampton and Long Buckby before rejoining the West Coast Main Line at Rugby. Avanti West Coast tend not to use the line, being used by London Northwestern Railway and freight services, although they do use it as a diversionary route when the West Coast Main Line undergoes engineering works. A quick seat test highlights the padding of the seat, as well as the comfort, which is to be expected from the first class area of an intercity train. Electronic seat reservations are also present, as is common with Avanti's Voyager fleet. You can also order food and drink to your seat using the onboard hub system. Just scan the QR code and place your order. Pretty convenient if you ask me. We are now approaching the second stop on our journey, Coventry. Coventry was awarded the City of Culture title in 2021 and also houses the University of Warwick.
On board this Avanti West Coast service to Edinburgh, calling at Birmingham International, Birmingham New Street.
We are now departing Birmingham International, the last stop before our destination, Birmingham New Street. Despite the name, Birmingham International is actually located in Solihull and serves Birmingham International Airport to destinations in Europe as well as the Middle East and beyond. As well as being served by Avanti West Coast, London Northwestern Railway and West Midlands Railway, Cross Country also provides services here between the North West and the South West, as well as Transport for Wales providing services between the West Midlands, the Cambrian Coast and the North Wales Coast. And with the HS2 works at Birmingham Curzon Street in full view, it's now time for me to end my time with Avanti West Coast. So, what did I think of Avanti West Coast service? Overall, I thought it was a really comfortable, fast, and efficient journey, not to mention with great service provided by the staff and great perks in first class. However, that being said, my ticket for first class today cost me £33.75, including railcard discount of a third, as well as a seat fog upgrade of £14, so that was rather expensive. Although, saying that, the journey itself only took an hour and a half. Well, let's see how London Northwestern Railway do now. Now, we're going to take a look at the London Northwestern Railway Class 350 Desiro units, which are technically the workhorses of the West Coast Mainline. Built in several batches between 2004 and 2014, the Class 350s form the bulk of West Coast Mainline commuter services operated by London Northwestern Railway, operating out of Northampton to destinations such as London and Crewe. They also operate local services in the West Midlands, such as Walsall to Wolverhampton, Birmingham to Rugeley, and Birmingham to Crewe. It's now time for us to board our unit. This particular Class 350 is one of the later build units from 2014. Despite having a recent refurbishment to include plug sockets and display screens, this particular unit still has a London Midland interior, my guess being because of how new the units are compared to the other Class 350s they own. Walking through the unit, we are currently in standard class, which features a 2+2 seating configuration as well as tables, which is pretty good to see considering they operate on long distances sometimes. We are now in the wheelchair accessible area, which also includes a PRM specified toilet. We are now in the first class carriage of the train, which mainly features standard class seating with a small compartment for first class. This is to be expected from a commuter train, however it is useful to have. That being said, it's time to take my seat and hit the Iron Road. Let's go! Now time to check out the features of the train. First, we can see display screens, which were recently fitted upon refurbishment. Saying that, however, they didn't seem to be working on this journey today. Plug sockets are also present for the charging of mobile devices and laptops. These are present at every seat, regardless of the class that you're travelling in, which is really good compared to the Pendolino. Route maps are also present by every door in each carriage, showing the local services in the West Midlands operated by the units, as well as the long-distance LNR services. Bletchley is a suburb of Milton Keynes and a key part of the future East-West Rail project and the MARSTON Vale line. Bletchley CSD is located slightly north, which is a stabling point for LNR's units. On a seat test of the Class 350 first class seat, we can see that whilst it's not as comfortable as the Avanti seat, it's still rather plush and comfortable, especially for a long distance journey such as the one I'm undertaking right now. A massive difference to Avanti's Pendolinos, London Northwestern Railway's 350s have curtains as opposed to blinds, which are quite harder to operate in my opinion. The Class 350 Desiro units can operate at 110 miles an hour, which, although slower than Avanti, provides a more attractable option compared to other commuter services out there on the rail network. Another plus point of LNR services is that it's possible to walk through units when operating in multiple, thanks to the interconnecting end gangways. This is particularly useful when the train is busy, as such you are able to walk through to the next unit to find a seat. The unit we are in now is a Class 350-2 unit, part of the 2008/9 build of the class. These units are notable as being the only members of the class to have 2+3 seating, as well as being the only member of the class to be withdrawn upon introduction of the Class 730 units. As such, LNR have let these units go in all honesty. You can see that the moquette is rather worn and that there are no plug sockets in standard class, which is a bit of a disappointment in my opinion. We are now in the first class section of the train, which, as with the Class 350-3 units, features a first class compartment in the middle of two standard class sections. This is exactly identical to the Class 350-3 first class, however the moquette is noticeably worn. To the end of this carriage we see a standard class toilet. Seat numbers are also included on the Class 350 seats, presumably to future-proof them should they ever require seat reservations in the future. In accordance with my ticket, I now have to change at Rugby for my onward LNR connecting service to Birmingham New Street. Whilst this may sound like a massive deal breaker, the price of my ticket was really cheap, and you have plenty of layover time, around 10 or 15 minutes, so I think I can let this one slide if I'm going to be honest. As per the name, rugby is actually where the game was invented, back in the rugby school in the 19th century. And it's out with the old and in with the new. We now have a refurbished Class 350-1 taking us onwards to Birmingham New Street, which is part of the original series build of 2004/5. But before we take a look at the refurbished Class 350, let's have a look at the scenery of Warwickshire. Starting with the seat test, the seats are just as comfortable as the previous Class 350s in my opinion, if not more. However, the moquette is rather faded, despite being rather new, given the colour scheme that was used. The leather headrest was a nice touch in my opinion. All seating on the refurbished Class 350 units have both plug and USB sockets, meaning that unlike the Pendolinos, you have greater flexibility with where you can charge your device and what with. As with the Pendolinos, there are operatable lights in first class. However, these are manually operated yourself and are located on the ceiling as opposed to the table, which is a bit of a disappointment. Walking through the standard class portion of the first class carriage, we can see that there's a luggage rack space. This space was previously a guard cabin, which was removed upon refurbishment, which in my opinion was a smart move, especially given this train serves Birmingham International. And yes, the default passenger information screens are actually working on this train, which we can see is showing the coach number of the train, a new feature upon refurbishment. This time, the new display screens are working, so I can show off some of their features. A notable feature, which I think is pretty cool, is that they show the journey progress of this service, which is an all-stopper to Birmingham New Street. The display screens also show information such as the news, temperature, and weather. And with departure from Marston Green, just a few minutes north of Birmingham International, we are now on our way to our last stop, which is Birmingham New Street. So far, we're on time. And with Curzon Street in full view, it's time for me to conclude on the West Coast Mainline operators. So, if you want a service which provides very fast speeds, great comfort and friendly staff, I would 100% recommend Avanti West Coast. However, London Northwestern Railway do have a competitive offering. Bear in mind that I paid £12.20 for my first class advanced single and had booked only a day or two before. This also includes my railcard discount of a third, saving me over £20 compared to what I booked with Avanti West Coast. Not to mention that the Avanti West Coast Pendolinos have way less features compared to the Class 350 Desiro, which I'm travelling on right now. Saying that though, I really do need to try them out once the Pendolinos have been refurbished to make a more fairer comparison. Well, in the meantime, that's it from me, and welcome to Birmingham New Street. And welcome to Birmingham New Street and Grand Central Shopping Centre. I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, please help us out by giving it a like, sharing it, as well as subscribe to the channel and enable notifications, as I'm now uploading videos every 2 Fridays at 5 PM. Well, that's it from me guys. Take care, stay safe. Bye.